Hello, this is Adam Horton back for another video in the video tutorial series for Ark Nova. We're going to talk about basic game flow in this video. From about 55,000 feet up, Ark Nova is a game about turning money into victory points. The cycle of building enclosures and playing animals, it all costs money, and a majority of the points you score will be from playing animals. So let's come up with all the ways we can use this to gain an advantage in the game. The first thing is maybe a little bit basic, but you should try and be efficient with your money. So obviously don't build enclosures larger than what your animals need, but we can do a little bit better than that. At the end of every break, you're going to get income based off of your appeal. So you'll get more money each break if you can convert all of your money into appeal by the end of the break. This is a decent heuristic, but there are a lot of exceptions. A lot of times you'll want to hold on to an animal until after the break because you plan to get a partner zoo that more than offsets the income you lose by waiting until after a break. Sometimes you can get more VP by waiting until after the break. In this case, you're kind of paying money for VP. So if this is more efficient than $3 per VP, which it frequently is, then it's frequently worth doing. This $3 per victory point is a pretty good baseline for what you should compare things to when you're thinking about how efficient they are. So like one conservation is 3 VP, one appeal is 1 VP. And if at the end of the day you're paying less than $3 per VP, then that's pretty good. And there's definitely a lot of ways to do that. But it follows at the end of all this that yes, getting conservation for playing animals is good, but it's less good in the first break or two when you'd really like to be getting income with all of your VP when that is sort of maximized. And also, like, you don't want to spend money on empty enclosures in a break if you could be spending that money on getting appeal, which turns into income instead. Let's talk about the cost of animals. Everything on an animal card has a cost to it. So by playing an animal, you are getting the entire package. You're paying for everything on that card, whether you want it or not. So if you're not getting value out of everything on that card, you should consider other options where you're not wasting your money on things you don't care about. Also, by extension, with that $3 per VP baseline, animals with requirements are discounted because you have to meet those requirements. So it's usually efficient to play animals with requirements that you can meet. Let's talk about other ways to get money and victory points. First of all, let's talk about money. Sponsors that give you money obviously give you money, but keep in mind there is an opportunity cost. You could have just taken money with the sponsors action instead of playing the sponsor card. So that's a thing, but usually that means earlier on in the game, sponsors that can make you a variable amount of money are going to be worth playing, and at the end of the game, probably not. Let's talk about kiosks and pavilions. Kiosks can get you income over the course of the game, so they should be a way to make money. So like they should pay for themselves, but really the break that you're paying for a kiosk, the income that directly follows that, you should probably be getting $2 out of that kiosk. If you're not, it should feel a little bit bad. And after that, then they just provide you with extra money every break for the rest of the game, which is pretty great. Pavilions enable your kiosks to not only make more income, but the $2 that you spend for 1 VP is ahead of the curve compared to $3 for 1 VP. And also building pavilions does not require a card from your hand to do, which is really nice because that's a limited resource. Yes, you can spend an entire action during the first break or two to just build a kiosk or pavilion, but in general, you'd prefer to upgrade your build action to do this alongside building enclosures for your animals. Past the first break and maybe the second break, I would say it's probably not worth it to spend your entire action just to build a kiosk or pavilion. Other sources of money are map bonuses, the $5 and $12 you get from backing a conservation project, or placement bonuses, stuff like that. Conservation point bonuses at 5 and 8 CP, you can get money there, and upgrading your sponsors action gets you more money, and that's a pretty respectable source of money if you choose to do that. Other ways to get victory points, I would say the biggest way to get victory points without spending money on animals is by backing conservation projects. And because of that, it follows that anything that helps you support a conservation project has extra implicit value. So the base conservation projects will inflate the value quite significantly of everything that helps you meet those projects. The other significant way to score victory points without spending money is by playing sponsor cards. Any victory points here is welcome, but sponsors that give you appeal, especially early in the game, are extra good because that appeal also translates to extra income. You can get conservation points for getting workers, partner zoos, and universities, depending on your map, and your final scoring cards also help you with this. One other thing I'd like to talk about is having a plan for your first few association actions, at least the first two. As you're picking your starting hand, you should have a decent idea of what your first couple of association actions is going to be. And here's a couple of strong options that you can do. One generally solid thing is to aim to back a conservation project at the start of the second break. So an example of that could be a breeding program. So partner zoo first break, breeding program second break, or maybe like get 2 of a continent for a base conservation project. So partner zoo and an animal first break, and then 2 CP start of the second break. Or maybe you can back a project earlier than that in the first break. Sometimes a release project is available there. Another strong thing you can do is to take the 2 good universities, meaning the 2 universities that give you reputation. You want to upgrade animals along the way, maybe find a spot on your map that gives you reputation when you cover it, with the goal of getting up to 8 reputation relatively quickly to get your second worker. These are all relatively strong things you can do, depending on the support that's available from the base projects and your starting hand. Another thing you want to be thinking about when you're planning for your first association actions is when do you want card upgrades, and how soon do you want them, and how many upgrades do you want? A lot of the ways you're going to be getting card upgrades is 5 reputation, your second university, and by hitting 2 conservation points. Universities will usually get you 2 of these relatively quickly. Sometimes if you can back a project, you can get 2 relatively quickly. If you have some cards from your hand that give you reputation, you can get to 5 reputation really fast. You should have an idea for the cards you want to upgrade based on what you need from your hand, or how you're going to be able to get your second worker, whether that's through a map bonus, 2 conservation points, or from 8 reputation, and have a rough plan from the start of the game of how you might be getting there. If you don't have a plan, then it's going to take you longer, and you're not going to be able to do good stuff. All right, that's it for this video, and I'll see you for the next one. Thanks for watching.